What's up, everybody? This is Illogic, and I'm back with another episode of the Map Your Transition series. In this episode, we will be breaking down the song Passion Fruit, which I dropped a video for a couple weeks ago, directed by my man Blueprint. Y'all seem to like it. You know what I'm saying? If you haven't seen it, you can hit the link below and check that out. But this song does have a similar history like Hot Lead. So we will dive into the history and I'll break down the lyrics for y'all. Y'all ready? Let's go. Yeah, so as I mentioned, Passion Fruit has a similar history to that of Hot Lead. Both songs were written around the same time, and both songs were for the same album. Now that I'm doing this breakdown, the album was called Make Moves, and this was the title track. Passion Fruit was originally called Make Moves. It was produced by Earmint, who now goes by Spectacular Diagnostics, and you can catch me on a track on his new album called Raw Lessons with Def C and Curly Castro from Backwoods Studios. Check it out, pick it up. But yeah, so we were recording an album called Make Moves. I had a few joints that actually are on this album that were supposed to be on that album, and the album never worked out. So here's a little sneak peek of what that original sounded like.
Yo, now when I first started, I wanted to rap simple and plain. Only cared about hitting the stage and fans knowing the name. Never endeavored to get better acquainted with the business. Depended on others to make decisions. I should have listened to mom. Her logic was valid, I didn't care. Knew I was talented, being illogic could get me where I want to be.
Yeah, that joint's dope. I always did like that. But yeah, so that was what the original sounded like, the original beat. It was super hype, different, and it was called Make Moves. And the reason this song is a little different than Hot Lead is that the second verse is actually something that I wrote recently. If you listen to the song is more of when I started rapping, and the second verse is more of where I am today. In the original, the second verse was a little more about, you know, touring and rap life and things that related to that. And you can go to my Bandcamp page now and actually download the original and check it out so you can hear that second verse that is a little different. So yeah, that's a little bit of history on the song Make Moves / Passion Fruit. The new version, very dope beat that I made myself, and it features my man Product on the cuts. You know what I'm saying? So make sure you check that out. Go to my Bandcamp page if you want to hear the original. Now let's get into the breakdown. This song is basically autobiographical, you know, because when I first started rapping, I just wanted to rap. You know, most of us, when we first start rapping, we just want to rap. We just want to be the dopest on the block. We just want to be the dopest, you know, in our school. We just want to be the dopest, you know, in our neighborhood, whatever. And, you know, that was really it. When I first started, I wanted to rap simple and plain. Only cared about hitting the stage and fans knowing the name. I just wanted people to know who I was. You know, I just wanted to, you know, have that recognition, you know, of being a dope MC. You know what I'm saying? Then, you know, the next line, never endeavored to get better acquainted with the business, depended on others to make decisions. I should have listened to mom. Me and Print have talked about this actually on Super Duty Tough Work. When we first started Weightless, it was, you know, known that it was figured out that I just wanted to be a rapper. I didn't want to be involved with the business part. You know, we tried in the beginning, and, you know, I just wasn't business minded at the time. So it was cool for me to just rap. And luckily I had a dope crew that took care of me and didn't shaft me and didn't do me bad, you know, other than Manifest, but that's a whole nother story. But they took care of me, you know what I'm saying? So all I had to do was worry about rapping. You know, shouts out to Blueprint, shouts out to my man Inkwell, you know, for really taking care of me and really taking me under their wing. So all of the business decisions basically were made by Weightless, you know what I'm saying? And I didn't care about that as long as my records came out and I got to go tour, got to go to shows, you know, actually got paid. I was just, you know, the business part was a second thought, you know what I'm saying? And my mom always told me that, you know, I need to be involved with my business. I need to make sure that, you know, I'm understanding what's going on with my money. I need to make sure that I understand, you know, the things that's happening behind the scenes. But at the time, I didn't care about none of that. I just wanted to rap, you know what I'm saying? So I should have listened to mom. Her logic was valid. I didn't care. Knew I was talented. Being illogic could get me where I want to be. I just thought being illogic was enough. You know what I'm saying? I didn't really, this was before there was YouTube. This was before there was all the information that we have and a lot of the documentaries and things that we can see where we know the history of bad deals. We know how important knowing about that business side is these days. So back then, I didn't care about none of that. You know what I'm saying? I just wanted to rap, So being illogic could get me where I wanted to be. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough. No hustle to build, planted seeds didn't work to harvest the field. I planted all these seeds. I was out there touring. I was dropping dope records. I was getting a lot of press. I was doing all of these things. And still, I was on the cusp of, getting out there and becoming, more of a name, a bigger name, like some of my compadres that I came up with, like Atmosphere, Idea and Abilities, Murs, all of those cats that were on the touring circuit. When Weightless and I first started, those cats were, their careers were going and blossoming and doing all these things because they were a little more involved in a little more understanding of what it took to actually have a sustained career. I just wanted to rap. You know what I'm saying? I just wanted to rap. No hustle to build, planted seeds didn't work to harvest the field. The hardest thing to accept, my part in the screenplay. The hardest thing to accept was my part in the screenplay. Yeah, it was my fault that I wasn't, where I thought I should be at the time. It was my fault because I didn't take my career seriously enough to be invested in the work that it took to get me in those places. I depended on Blueprint and our publicist to make sure that, I depended on Blueprint to make sure I had a publicist. I depended on, because he handled most of the business. I depended on him to make sure that I got on tours. I depended on him to do a lot of things for me, and I didn't do those things myself. You know what I'm saying? So it was hard for me to accept that it was my fault that I wasn't where I thought I should be. But, when it comes down to it, you got nobody to blame but yourself if your success isn't what you think your success should be. When you place your life and your fate and your success in the hands of others, you can't expect them to do all of the things that you think should be done. You have to play a part. You have to at least know what's going on and be able to impart an idea of where you actually want to go. Not saying that where Blueprint and the people that I did have in control of a lot of things around me, they didn't lead me anywhere wrong, but it wasn't their job to make my career sustaining. It was their job to put me in a position to where I could make my own career sustaining, but I didn't take that ball and run with it. You know what I'm saying? So the hardest thing to accept was my part in the screenplay. The artist paints the picture regardless, but I handed over the brush and canvas, abandoned plans to be active, was happy collecting checks, showing up and just rapping. I wasn't as active as I should have been. I wasn't going out to, shows just to be, out there. I wasn't really practicing my craft like that. I wrote a lot, but I didn't understand the other side. The only side that I wanted to understand and cared about was the rapping part. And in the end, that wasn't what a sustained career, needed. It needed me to be engaged. It needed me to be focused on what actually was going on behind the scenes and how I got those flyers, how the vinyl was pressed, how the CDs were pressed and where they were pressed and who the journalists were to talk to. All of that stuff is necessary to understand in the process of success, especially now when independent music is so much more tangible than it was for us back then because of social media. Now it's more important to understand those things and be involved in your own movement and your own growth, and in that turn, your own success. So I handed over the brush and canvas, abandoned plans to be active, was happy collecting checks, showing up and just rapping. Just happened to be young and naive. Didn't have a plan B trick up the sleeve, I just had a dream. Oh, did I mention the wife and kids needed attention? This is when the mission's distractions changed the passion. I was happy collecting checks, man. You know what I'm saying? That's all I was doing at the time, was collecting checks, showing up and just rapping. And I was young. I didn't have a plan B. I dropped out of college after I recorded Unforeseen to start touring. I wasn't planning on going back to college. You know, I thought about it, but it was, you know, hip hop was first. And that was the thing that I was putting all my eggs in at the time, without understanding the behind the scenes, without understanding the business part of it. I thought that just being in Logic was enough. And then come to find out, especially once I had children and got married, things were a little different. You know what I'm saying? I put out Got Lyrics, I got married and had my son in the same month. And went on my first tour that month as well. You know, so, oh, did I mention the wife and kids needed attention? This is when the mission's distractions changed the passion. At first, I thought that was a distraction. At first, I thought that was something that I didn't want to have because it was going to take me away from the music. It was going to take me away from touring. But in turn, that became my motivation. It became my motivation to really get out there and tour as much as possible, in order to be able to make it and be able to take care of my family with this music stuff. So that was the first verse. All right, second verse goes a little something like this. Now, second verse is more present, you know. Second verse is me grown up. Second verse is me a little more engaged in everything about my career and about my family, and understanding that being in Logic ain't just enough. You know what I'm saying? So second verse goes a little something like this. Had that moment of atonement, realized what wasn't working, opened my eyes to focus on what was all worth it. So at the time, that moment of atonement was actually after Celestial came out, my biggest album. And the tour before that, before Celestial came out, actually after this Celestial came out, the first tour that I went on, I was out on the road, missed my son's birth. And that made me sit my ass down, because I didn't want to miss those things. I didn't want to be out there and, you know, missing my family. And the crazy thing about it is that tour that I came back from, where I missed my son's birth, 2 weeks after I got home, I got a call about another tour that was a big tour that actually could have sealed me a booking agent, that really would have put me on that path to where, you know, I was trying to get to. You know what I mean? But I had a decision to make. Do I want to be a family man, or do I want to be a touring artist? Because both couldn't exist at the same time at that time. Me and my wife were both young. She didn't know what it meant to be a mother, and I was leaving her alone for months at a time. It wasn't fair. And the fact that I missed my son's birth, I didn't want to, you know, be there. And that was my youngest son. I had two other sons that I was missing out on their growth because I was gone and on the road and all of that stuff. So I had to realize what I was doing this for and what was worth more, my touring career or my family being sustained and being happy and being taken care of. Opened my eyes to focus on what was all worth it. So many lessons digested on how not to stifle my blessings. Sat down for a second to prioritize where I'm heading. So during that time that I was sitting down, I figured out, okay, because the crazy thing is, my wife and my kids was living at my mom's house when I was out on the road. We didn't even have somewhere to live at the time, because the place that we were previous to me leaving on the road, we ended up getting kicked out for some reason. So I didn't even have a place for my family to live. And, you know, I just got home from tour. My wife and my kids are at my mom's house. She's there with a new baby and not her own place. And I'm supposed to go back out on the road. It just didn't add up. You know what I'm saying? So sat down for a second to prioritize where I'm heading. At that time, I sat down for actually about 5 years. I didn't put out a record for about 5 years. This was between Celestial and Diabolical Fun. So I sat down to prioritize where I'm heading, to have an idea of what I wanted in life and really decide what I wanted. And that was the time that I decided to go back to school and finish my education. So sat down for a second to prioritize where I'm heading. Finished my education, even became a master. Yeah, so I went back to school, finished my education, even became a master, got my master's degree. Admired the grace of patience, embracing my chosen pasture. So at this time, you know, I was happy. I was in a place where the decision that I made, even though it was a hard decision to make, very hard decision to make, I never stopped rapping. I never stopped writing. I never stopped, you know, I did do shows here and there during that time frame, but it wasn't to the extent that I was doing, you know, before then. I was gone for weeks, months at a time. I was doing tours with Rhymesayers. So, you know, we were gone for a minute, but I admired the grace of patience. I admired the grace of patience that my wife had with me to allow me to develop and learn about who I was so I could be the best version of myself for her and for my children. Admired the grace of patience, embracing my chosen pasture. Then we're jumping ahead a little bit in my life, experimenting, expanding the palette, building textures. So this is during the time where I started to work on Diabolical Fun. Then you have the Lucid Logic album, and then you have the A Man Who Thinks With His Own Mind album, and then I start producing, you know, so this is all covered in these lines. Then I start, you know, really developing who I was as an artist. So experimenting, expanding the palette, building textures, musically growing, plus as a man, I was getting better. So, you know, I was growing musically during all of this time, but I was also becoming a better husband. I was also becoming a better father. I started to really understand what those things meant and, you know, really take pride in the fact that I was a husband and a father, and that I had the ability to work on music whenever I wanted. You know what I'm saying? So I finished my education, got my master's degree, started working musically to develop, and then got me a full-time job at a good job after I got my master's degree. That's where this line comes in. Wifey wasn't as stressed once I landed stable employment, back to the 9 to 5, but actually I enjoyed it. I actually enjoyed my job. I posted not too long ago that for artists, if you have to work, it's not a concession to failure. If you have to get a job, it's not a concession to failure. For me, I ended up doing some work that I actually enjoyed and that I actually liked. So it definitely wasn't a concession of failure for me. And I was making good money. And my wife wasn't stressed out. So I wasn't arguing and, you know, all of that stuff that comes with having a lack of money, having a lack of responsibility, and really showing that you're taking that on for your family to be taken care of. So back to the 9 to 5, but actually I enjoyed it. Touring wasn't as frequent, though steady dropping releases. I was still putting records out during all of this time. I haven't been touring that much, but I've dropped multiple records, you know, over the last 10, 15 years. Capture the Sun, you know, like a lot of records I've dropped, you know, but touring wasn't as frequent, though steady dropping releases, trying to find a balance so two lives ain't competing, because my tour life and my home life were definitely two different things. Living out on the road, I was Illogic. When I came home, I was Jawar. It was hard to make those distinctions a lot of times. And it was hard to blend that person into one. And it took me a very long time during this time of me sitting down and kind of just working on myself and working on myself as an artist. It took me some time to really get to a point where I could understand and blend those two people together. And now I'm happy to say that I've made that transition, pun intended. So trying to find a balance where two lives ain't competing, still perfecting the journey, still growing every day. I continue chipping away to solidify my place in this culture as an artist and human being. An enlightened path is ever present in each song that I sing. Now, if you notice, the themes in this song are similar to some of the themes in Hot Lead. For example, still perfecting the journey, still growing every day. In Hot Lead, living life in circles, that line. I continue chipping away to solidify my place. I'm leaving footprints in the path of the stars from Hot Lead. Like, so a lot of the themes that I was writing about back then, I tried to blend them together for this record because they all made sense for me back then, and they still made sense for me today. And it shows that I'm still growing, and that living life in circles thing is real, because a lot of these songs are old, and I'm revisiting these and revisiting these emotions and revisiting the things and the themes that these songs have and relating them to my life now. So I needed to write this second verse, today, in order to really understand the full circle of this song. You know what I'm saying? So I hope you guys enjoyed this. You can go to my Bandcamp page and check out the original Make Moves / Passion Fruit, produced by Spectacular Diagnostics. And I'll see y'all for the next one. All right. Hope y'all got something out of this. Thank y'all so much. The transition is available now. Pick that joint up. Check it out on Spotify, all your streaming platforms if you haven't heard it yet. All right. See y'all next time. Peace.